should go and actually putting an unassigned role for the media rather than by actually being guided by the principles of journalism, by the trade, what is usually discussed as the real roles of journalists.
Yeah, but if we try to do this quotation and speak about the other interest, not only the national interest in local media, we face a big challenge as well, because we, as in the developing countries, and we still have the challenge to have the information, not only that, the censorship itself, because for me, I'm from Egypt, and we have private media and other national or governmental media. My newspaper is private, but we also always have this censorship. After main meetings like the Leaders Summit, which happened in Antibes last month, last month, um, um, we can't do any criticize or analysis about what exactly happened after the president came back to Egypt, and we take such. It's like how can we make our coverage? How can we write? Shall we write about Egypt's success to convince the other countries about its rights and to convince to find a solution, or we can say that Egypt failed to do that? So it's always controversial inside the editorial between the editorial team and our with our chief editor. Yeah, and if we speak about the challenges faced by the media to cover the issues of the Nile, it's like the understanding technical issues. Actually, we in Egypt, when there are technical issues like the GERD in the dam in Ethiopia, um, after announcing this dam, there was a lot of experts came out in the Egyptian media, and they start to speaking about this dam will harm Egypt and will cause such a disaster for the Egyptian water security and blah, blah, blah. But actually, we didn't find a real experts who belong to the government to know how to discuss or how to show the public or the journalism what is the reality after this dam and what is the how to interpret the technical information to the public. So I think that understanding the technical issues, it's a big challenge. And so that we need to make such a platform between researchers and journalists to know how to produce these technical issues for the public.
Basically, the series of trainings which we take and which we participate in different countries, what it helps us is both in Egypt and in Ethiopia, a bit reporting, one who's comfortable, who knows the scientific and the technical language of water-related issues, not just the dam, but every other water-related issues, how it affects the society and how it can be used by the government or any other citizens. They were not there because journalists, they will be assigned to cover the events. They may be with law background, they may be with literature background, or they come from different disciplines. But now, this epistemic community, which the one who are comfortable and who are actually specializing in this Nile and water issues are emerging because of these trainings. Now, well, my background is I'm a communication officer and I'm also a law lecturer. But because of these trainings, now I can say that in the last 3 or 4 years, I have become comfortable. I can now understand at least the gist of any scientific products on Nile, not just only politics, on not just the everyday communications. So that has been an issue, but which is being trying to be resolved as well. And also in the trainings, the link between journalists and researchers, journalists and civil society areas, journalists and policymakers, because the different trainings try to actually create, starting with public relation officers from the water resources ministries and researchers, it has started to have a wider perspective, a wider link to other important stakeholders of the Nile. And recently we have held a meeting in Cairo that's a scientific community, how to link a scientific community to actually work with journalists. The issue raised in that training is the researchers, the experts, the scientific community, they are comfortable to write in a language which they are comfortable, in a language of their trade. And the journalists, they are trying to communicate that to a layman audience. So they want to actually communicate in a very easy way. So if a language which the scientist tries to communicate is difficult for the journalist, what the journalist can take is a part in which he considers is easy for him to understand. So he might actually distort the original idea of the science because he is not good to understand those jargons and the scientific communication. So this project that which initiated, launched in Cairo is a little bit how can a journalist, by actually conducting a research together with the scientists, can actually help the scientist to write in a layman's language, or to say at least how to communicate in a very easily understandable manner. And as well as also how a journalist can benefit, how he can understand the scientific or the technical aspects from the scientists. So it tries to actually see the impacts on a long range. It's an ongoing project, a bigger research project, which is conducted by Emmanuel Fantin and his colleague. So it's trying to actually making a connection for to remain for some time, and then one would influence the other, and one can learn from the other. Journalists can learn from scientists, and scientists can learn journalists. So this kind of things also help a journalist to have a different and new perspectives, and which is also Aya and me, other journalists are there, but we are fortunate that, as she said, in 4 different countries we took these trainings continuously, and we are actually having developed, because she said here, the journalists are not trusted by the government, because the government suspects them that they might not communicate the issue which the government has actually put a red mark. And the scientists in the previous experience, they have doubts on the journalists that they will not communicate the whole message, but only the message they have understood. So they try to distance themselves, and in access to information, the journalist is not denied of accessing the information, not by only the government officials, but also the scientific community used to distance itself. So, but if they believe that this journalist can understand me, this journalist can actually know the main ideas from my scientific information, and then the journalist can bridge, can actually serve as a bridge to a forum, or to be an instrument for different voices as well.
And actually, the funny thing which has happened frequently, after any single meeting, negotiation meeting, the official came out and said the media is the reason of we are failed to have any results or to make any achieve, because you write in a negative way and you make such a polarization against the other country. So they always blame the media and didn't think that why they didn't find any solution on the negotiation table with themselves. So now we believe that the media role is to informing and educating and the mobilization, to make the mobilizing and creating awareness. Actually, we still need this, to create the awareness from the people, because we in Egypt have many negative impacts about the negative or fake propaganda which is happening in media, and it's sometimes the people in the streets, when they saw any Ethiopian guy, in the media there was some messages like, if you find any Ethiopian guy you have to kill them because they take your water. So we need to raise the awareness, not only among the officials, but I think it must be among the journalists itself.
Well, just earlier in one of the presentations, I see that from simple reporting to in-depth and analytical reporting on the Indus River, that's really what's happening in the River Nile. The journalists are now, rather than taking the words of somebody, mostly they are comfortable to have an interview, because their chances of distorting is minimal as compared to other analysis. But now they're comfortable. They try to take everything in its holistic approach. So they provide fair, balanced, accurate educational and in-depth reporting. And when they do that, their chance of being parochial and their chance of being very much biased and discriminatory towards other Basin countries is. So now you will see in the last years, the ongoing research indicates that in recent times, the Basin media have started to take the other countries, other Basin countries' interest into account rather than before. So it has been a slow one. It's not a big of a deal, but there are encouraging signs on the result of this continuous interaction and trying to involve the media into this process have started to produce a better coverage on the Nile.
But the last question is still exists and arouse every time that does the media is welcome to be one of the partner to the negotiation process and the water issues talks between the Nile Basin countries, because it's a very high sensitive issue, as we know, because of the political background and blah blah blah. But what is the real role of media? Does the media is welcome to cover what happened in the negotiation, what happened on the backstages, why the negotiators fight each other, what is the reality in the closed room? So we in Egypt, for me myself, I can't find any answers on that question. Is that our role to tell the public what exactly happened, why the officials still fight each other, why Egypt is still speak about its historical water quota instead of speaking about cooperation and initiating a new projects with Ethiopia or cooperate with Ethiopia to build the dam. So I think that it's very confused for us as a journalist to know what is our role. Is to cover or keep silence like what the government wants us.
Thank you very much.
Would that be very complex? Would that cause, wouldn't that's not confusing, is it? Oh, you're not invited for during those negotiations. Oh, okay. So yeah. But have you developed enough relationship with your government officials who are in that negotiating relationship? Okay. Oh. Because the same thing happens sometimes in our part of the world, because when if you have enough, if the researchers or the government officials may have enough confidence in you as a journalist, but they sometimes tell you, but they say it's off the record or the name can't come, so then we can't quote them.
Anyone else with the introduction? So great. I think that really, paves the way for the next session. Oh, sorry.
My name is Simon Hoklund from Norway. I've worked quite a bit with the Nile, so I know the background and I know your history and I know the story that you're explaining. And I was quite impressed on how well you as representative, not only for the media, but also from your two countries, cooperated in presenting the message here. You did it very, very, very well. But there are different perspectives among these 11 countries on how to cooperate on the Nile. and the people are extremely interested in communication about the Nile because it's so vital for your countries, for economic development in Ethiopia, for security in Egypt, and also for the potential development in Sudan, in between these two countries, and what might happen there. If there's more access to water also for the Sudanese and irrigation, we have talked about that in Indus. But now the question is, since you cooperate, have you tried to write very similar articles in these two countries? I'm asking because a report in Cairo on the need for economic development in Ethiopia could be controversial, as would a report in Addis about the huge need for water security in Egypt. And an article on water demand, the need for water demand management in Egypt, which could please Ethiopia, could be difficult to have in both countries. So have you tried that, to write the similar articles in these two countries, since you have developed that eloquent and close relationship? Thanks.
Well, that's an interesting question, and as I said, this series of trainings, one of the purposes is to create this mutual interest, and the scientists have shown a common ground for these two countries. The politicians, if you listen to the politicians, and then you will hear that at least in the near future, the chance of striking an agreement between these two countries, particularly Ethiopia and Egypt, is not an easy thing. But in terms of trying to understand these scientific findings, there are common things in which the two countries can deal with. And the journalists are persuaded, and I can say for myself and for Aya that it's just due to some personal issues that we were busy. Otherwise, both our media houses have agreed that in soon we are working on the story to publish on the common article between her and me. It's going to be published in both media outlets, in her in Egypt and for me, because we have also a good chance that Aya writes in Arabic and in English in her writings, and my media, the reporter in Ethiopia, also is published bilingually in Amharic, the national language, and as well also an English edition of our newspaper is there. So in English we will try to produce, but the training encourages others to collaborate. I think we will be the first, but hopefully we're not going to be the last one.
Our paper to the Ethiopian writers to write about the GERD. Actually, it was very argument because we, as an Egyptian media outlet, open the platform for the Ethiopian guys to write about their point of view. It was very arguments, and some of people from the government say why you do that, but we was convinced, and that we have to open a platform for many point of view. So I think it could be, and before I told Solomon that we cannot only rely on our local newspaper, we have to open new platform in the international media outlet, and we have, I work as a freelance with the other international media outlets, so we can promote for the cooperation or our mutual point of view on this.
It would be interesting to read 2 articles in your papers about the benefit sharing as seen from the other country.
Okay, very quickly. One quick question is that do you have a network, media network, across the basin, Nile Basin countries? Like, do you meet and talk, and apart from the trainings that happens, do you also at the personal level have a network? The other question is that you had mentioned about two things. One is the training that both of you have gone through, and that you developed proposals or developed understanding together with the scientific community. Would you like to give any suggestion to this group what else we should do to make media more sensitive to various other issues apart from the technical issues that we're talking about? So because you have gone through such training and such developing proposal, because this has been a big question here, how do we make the scientific community write or speak the language that media understands?
We have a Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups, and we always being in touch about every single developed happen in the Nile water issues, like the meeting of and actually on this group we are not only the journalists, we have experts, and we have national experts from the NBI, the Nile Basin Initiative. They always reply on our question, which is and it's very important to put the sources of the information together with the journalists, because if we have any question, if we not know more information about what is ongoing, so it's being a very good opportunity for the dialogue. And to use the social media as well, it's very important, because it's like the high-speed access to each other. So whenever something happens, or there are meetings in Ethiopia and I'm in Egypt, I can contact with Solomon and he can give me a brief on what exactly happened, and taking videos, photos, without going there. Because as you know that we have the problem in the fund, so as me, I can't be always attending all the events happen on the file. Actually, my next question about the yeah. Yeah, actually, I think that you have to be always in contact, because it is the only way to keep your minds to know what to know each other. And even that's happen, you can open new sources of information and new sources. You can tell the people about that. So I think that it's not only the first step cannot be only from the media, because there is a lot of a challenge faced by the media in each country, because like our colleague from Pakistan said that the water issues is not on the high priority agenda. Afghanistan, sorry, it's not on the high political agenda. So the journalist cannot be the main element to make like an influence in that. So it must be on the first step coming from the NGOs who believe in the water issues, and the experts and the universities and the other organization. And I think they can find a good access with the journalists.
So I'll just first, show you a video. This has been we've been collecting these short bites from you all, and we just put it all together. So just as a recap of where all the management is done, and you enjoy that, and then I'll move on to the next bit.
Water is a subject that is certainly undercovered. One of the reasons may be that water is a very complicated issue. No, it's difficult to understand. It has lots of implications. Every time that Indus has been covered in the past, it's always when there has been a crisis.
But the issues have become so highly politicized that nobody wants to touch it anymore. And the more we delay this, the greater is our loss.
There's a gap in, understanding the ecology and the kind of dependence or the interrelationships between ecology, geology, hydrology, all other issues that are connected, and they are very important because this is the Himalayan region, and unlike other regions, as a geographical landscape, it's very fragile, and therefore it's important that before any kind of development takes place, that there is an understanding of this, and right now that is the biggest gap that exists.
نقش اطلاعات، نقش رسانه ها در نقش کلیدیه. میتونیم بگیم که اگر ما و شما و همون نقشی که داریم در روز موضوع به شکل مسئولانه بپردازیم، شاید 49 اینجا می‌سازد. یعنی نقش ما در رشد مولیا 51% و شما 49%، نه کمتر. در واقع میشه که این جایگزین.
Because the media in all of these 4 countries is part of the dissemination of knowledge, it's part of informing public debate. It creates a kind of an interface between science on the one hand and policymakers on the other, and it also generates this upward push from people. You know, an informed public can come into this equation and start demanding more action, not just to help themselves nationally, but they may also say, well, look, we understand this is a collective problem. We want our governments to work more closely together.
کار میکنن با خیلی از موضوعات بیشتر آشنا نبودن، چون مسائل خیلی تکنیکی است و طبیعی است که وقتی در یک رشته مشخص تحصیل نداریم و مشخص در یک بخش کار نکردیم و مطالعه نداریم نمیفهمیم. پس طبیعی است که شهروندان عادی کشور هم این مورد بیشتر نمیدونن. خیلی خوب است که قسم برنامه‌ها دایر شود و خبرنگاران بیشتر بتونن که در یک حوزه مشخص آموزش ببینن، تجربیات همکارای دیگر هم داشته باشن و تجربیات خود را بتونن به نحو دوباره از طریق تهیه گزارش‌ها، خبرها یا هم بعض برنامه‌هایی که در بحث میشه و متخصصین یک رشته مشخص در اشتراک میکنن بتونن که دوباره ایره.
They are short of information. You see, I compare myself. I was chief engineer irrigation, put in 35 years. I didn't know the facts. How do you expect the media people to know the facts? So we are interacting with the media because we consider them as the vehicle to spread this information to the common man.
I think we do need more credible scientific experts that journalists, could trust. And
it's about both of them moving closer, finding that middle ground where one feels comfortable talking to the other is talking about issues that the media might be interested in, so on and so forth. And we've got to make our knowledge more accessible to the media, and the media has to meet us halfway, not just chasing that sensationalist story, but doing occasionally the in-depth articles.
Might be some familiar faces. So now that we've come to this point, we thought it would be good to get a feedback, a sense from you, those who have been part of the process, those who are new to the process. What was good, what can be done differently? So I'll open up the floor and
before we open up the floor, there are people there are about half and half. About half the people in this room are aware of this process because they've been at it from the beginning, and the other half haven't. So probably you or I, whatever. I'll very quickly tell you how this started. Okay, this whole thing started with Imi having this idea, coming to me and saying, "Can we do this? Can we do a series of media training workshops? Can we improve coverage?" And my immediate reaction was no. And my immediate reaction was no because I have gone through this process in the past with Ali Sheikh's group. We have gone, Zofin was there, Amitabh was there in 2011, Shabina was there. We did a very good 3-day media interaction in Islamabad with all the Water and Power Development Authority coming and talking about it. And there was definite improvement in coverage, in the tone of the coverage in 2011. And it lasted for all of 2 weeks. Okay? And when I checked back with the 26 people, of which 19 were from Pakistan and 7 from India, as to why there was this, it had gone back to square one. I was essentially told that this was due to pressure from editors and owners of media organizations. Which is why when EMI came back to me at the beginning of last year, I said no, I am not interested in going through this exercise again, because you will come back to the same situation. Then they said, okay, then how do we go about it? At which point we together came up with this idea that let's ask the journalists, is there any appetite for this in the first place? Let's not come up with a series of workshops or whatever without knowing if the journalists want it in the first place. So that was when the first regional meeting in Kathmandu was called in March last year, right? And that's the start of this particular part of the story, and I'll let Natasha tell you what happened in the process since that time. Because there are essentially two pieces of activity between then and now. One was a series of national level workshops, and the other was this fellowship to journalists who cover this. The fellows are here. In the room, they can tell you what their experience is like, whether they have learned anything or not. So one fellowship and three of the four national workshops that we have, and the fourth is scheduled tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Rajiv. So, would any of the journalists who have been part of the process, would you like to give your input? Also, I wanted to also ask you, you publish stories at times, very important critical stories. You must have received feedback also from people, interest which has been generated through your articles, and do you see that having any effect? So, I'm just throwing it out in the open because I've heard a lot of times, somebody published something and, someone important getting in touch with them, asking more follow-up or asking about. So, just your experiences. Anybody? Yeah, ask it.
Uh, Thank you very much. I was participating in Kathmandu Media Dialogue last year. I've been there. It was a very good start for Afghanistan media. After that, we get the idea to work on the water also, because, as I mentioned before, water is not on our priority list. Most of the uh, media coverage is on the politics, on the security, on the national big challenges. So after we joined the media dialogue in Kathmandu, it gave us the idea to let's work on the water also, because most of the challenges, most of the problem in Afghanistan also coming from the water. We have shared water with the 5 countries, with the Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and Iran. So also some of the problem coming from the water issues. After that, we tried to give the idea to the journalist to let's work on the water also. Uh, in the middle of the year, last year, we had a media dialogue in Afghanistan, and a group of journalists joined to the media dialogue. I can say it was a very great initiation for the Afghanistan media, and start to bring changes in the media policy also. Now, when we review the media, water is there. We can find every news, every news bulletin. There is a section for the economy, and there is a report about the water. It brings a very big change for Afghanistan, and I can say now the media really interested to work on on the water. But what the problem is the government priorities. It's not the water. The problem they not focus on the water. By the way, uh, we had a conflict. It's a kind of complaint. 2 days ago, the president of Iran complained that Afghanistan building dams and infrastructure, and it had a bad effect on Iran. Since we, in the past 50 years, we just built only one dam, and it bring a big issue. It become a big deal for our neighboring countries. So the media, since 3 days ago, they start covering transboundary reports, and it was helpful for the politicians. They try to not increase the conflict, but they try to bring both the countries together to work together for the water, for benefit sharing. And I'm really happy that now Afghanistan media working a little bit more professional on the water issues. They're trying to cover transboundary water. And other good thing is that some source of the government, they are willing to support media and sharing information. But still there is a long way to persuade the government to share all the data, all the information with the media. Because as I mentioned before, the access to information in Afghanistan is very much complicated, very much difficult. Even there are lots of associations, lots of institutions working to facilitate access to the information. But still there is a long way to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So in fact, this is something which we noticed in Afghanistan, where the government officials actually, welcomed and were more comfortable in interacting with the media as compared to India and Pakistan. So the level of trust between the two also needs to be sort of built. Joydeep?
उर्दू में बात करूं? मैं थोड़ा सा अपना एक्सपीरियंस बताना चाह रही हूँ कि मैं पिछले 15 ईयर्स से इन्वायरमेंट पे लिख रही हूँ. मैंने वाटर पे बहुत लिखा, ट्रांसबाउंड्री इश्यूज़ पे लिखा, और इंटरेस्टिंग ये था कि मैंने पिछले 15 सालों में कभी इतनी कवरेज इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी की नहीं देखी. जब मोदी साहब ने ये कहा कि खून और पानी साथ नहीं बह सकते, तो उस वक्त उर्दू अखबारात में इतनी कवरेज हुई है इसकी, IWT की इतनी कवरेज हुई है. लेकिन उसका सिर्फ एक ही पहलू था कि इंडिया जो है ये हमसे बातचीत बंद करना चाह रहा है. उसमें जो इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी की जो अच्छाई थी या बुराई थी या उस पर कोई नहीं लिख रहा था, सिर्फ एक ही पहलू था. तो फिर मेरे एडिटर ने कहा कि आप इस पर लिखो. मैंने कहा मैं 2-3 दफ़ा लिख चुकी हूँ उस पर, आपको नहीं पता तो वो अलग बात है. लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं फिर लिखे. मैंने कहा मैं इस तरह नहीं लिखूँगी जिस तरह ये कवरेज हो रही है. फिर उसको मैंने उसी तरह लिखा कि ये इस ट्रीटी को जब हम एक्सपर्ट से बात करते हैं तो वो कहते हैं कि ये इतना अच्छा ट्रीटी है कि जंगों के दरमियान भी ये नहीं टूटा. इंडिया पाकिस्तान लड़ते रहे लेकिन ये ट्रीटी काम करता गया, और 2 या 3 दफ़ा हम कोर्ट में गए हैं, बाकी ये काम करता रहा.
I wanted to respond to Asif because I had asked you to park your question, right, about from earlier. So I want to throw that question back at you. You said you have a problem getting data from the government on water, right? Are you getting any data from people like Professor Ikrar? Have you tried to contact him? There are independent researchers working, independent think tanks working. In Afghanistan, I know that Professor Ikrar does a lot of work, but he's not the only one. There are others working. So my question and my suggestion is, if the government is not giving you data, go to the independent researchers. There are plenty of them in Kabul. I do want to make one point specifically about Afghan journalists, that Yes, you can do some amount of reportage on these issues sitting in Kabul, but I strongly believe that you cannot actually put a human face and write compelling stories on these issues without actually going and talking to the people who live on the river basin. You have to get out of the city to do these reports. And we are willing to help you do that. Get out of the city, do these reports. We are willing to commission such stories. Just do it.
I also wanted to share some of my observations when we held after we held the Bourbon conference. Um, we formed that group, the WhatsApp group, and although initially the journalists were posting their stories and were very enthusiastic, but they never got any feedback. I don't think, except for good work, excellent. I don't think the experts read any of the stories, and unless they were quoted, and very few actually were quoted. So there was no like kind of a good detailed feedback from them, and some of them actually opted out of that group. Some of the experts wanted to come out of that group, and they left the group also. Um, After this thing, we were told that we can. A lot of the journalists wanted to go out into the field and do a story. So our Met Office DG said that he's going to find finance. He even said that there is no constraint on finances, and he will make sure that a group goes and visits some northern part where there'd be glaciers, and that has still not happened. He hasn't ever contacted any of us. Then recently there was I was Joydeep had asked me to do something, or at least keep a lookout for Glofs. So I contacted Ghulam Rasool, and he said that he went, but because of the poor weather he came back, but part of his team was still there. So I told him, and he said it's a very remote area. It's very difficult to even contact or communicate on phone or in any way. So I told him keep me in the loop and tell me. And by now, after the Bourbon thing, we were in touch also. So he said he'll do it, and he hasn't done anything. So what I'm trying to say is that many times the government officials never seek us out. We have to keep on doing it, and sometimes I feel we have to meet halfway. They have to meet us halfway also, because we are also doing other stories. We're not just doing climate stories or environment stories. We're doing other stories as well. So if if they want us, they also have to be a little more proactive in informing us. At least even he said he went to that area, but he couldn't. He had to come back because of he could have taken at least one journalist from Islamabad with him, and anybody. And then they never. I think they these people in Jahanzeb was telling me that he had asked them for some information, because they could have done a good infographics for them after the Bourbon on certain topics, but they never got back to them. So then journalists also forget about it. It's we have to, I mean, they have to keep us motivated also, and that's what I'm saying, meet us halfway.
Um, so yes, we reached out to IRSA and we continued that process. I did it personally 5-6 times. Eventually he said, here's my PA's email address and he'll help you out, and he didn't. But I do take your point that there can be other experts to be reached. The problem at this point was that my own heads, for example, from the features desk, was like, this topic is not very sexy. And especially being part of Dawn, we're dealing with daily news, we're dealing with updates per day. So it becomes very hard to even convince my own team that, this is very, very important for a number of reasons. And these are some of the arguments they made. They said people can't relate to it because it's on a macro level. And this is probably very, very important, and it applies to Dawn. I don't know if it applies, if you guys can relate. It was also a question of that we cater to an urban population, a very rich population, and these people don't feel, and they definitely don't have a very strong civic sense. They solve their water issues by digging a tube well into their back garden. Uh, Big parts of Karachi, for example, don't have any water lines, so water tankers deliver water to their houses twice a week. So at least from Dawn's perspective, we are dealing with an audience who doesn't care. We don't reach that rural population who would probably be affected directly. And then, of course, the next argument, which is pragmatically speaking, Pakistan has so many issues. Why don't we tackle one where we're getting perhaps a little further? Sexual harassment, for example, would be one of them. So why not focus there? And lastly, and this is just some insight, people genuinely don't like stories on the environment as a whole. The only time we've seen a good response, and I can measure it all because I'm the editor of the website, the only times we see a good response is when the stories are positive in nature. So if you can frame it in a way which seems positive, you'll get an audience. They care about that. So for example, solar energy, a solar park being created in Pakistan. These kinds of stories grab people even though they don't have a clear understanding of solar energy. They're just like, it's a positive story, so we're going to read through it. The planting of trees in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that's another story they would be very interested in reading. Water doesn't seem to have those kinds of stories. And generally, the environment, that topic just doesn't.
Something else. You also asked if we write stories and what kind of feedback we get. So if I am writing on the transboundary issue or the Indus Water Treaty, if I'm writing on CPEC, the China-Pakistan corridor, so what will happen is, there'll be lots of comments at the end. Those comments seem very unrelated to the story because it'll just become a national issue. And it'll become a nationalistic kind of a stance that you'll get, that if there is even a little bit of criticism on CPEC, so they'll say, let it happen, why are you writing such things? And or it'll be like, if it's Indus Water Treaty, it'll be like, this is, anti-Pakistan stance you're taking. So they haven't really read the story. They're just, very jingoistic. The comments become very jingoistic also, I've noticed.
No, that's an excellent point, actually.
I don't know how it pans out in India.
Yeah.
One feels they haven't even read the whole thing.
Yeah, it's exact. So our comments are mostly not related to the story. So you'll read a Jai Shri Ram or something like that, something political or something about religion or something. But apart from the comments, what he was saying is spot on, even with the Times of India. And I'm just wondering how can I sort of how can we make these stories more human interest stories, and also positive stories are read more often. Making them genuinely sort of something that would appeal to everyone, not just people who are aware of the technical or the legal issues related to this.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. So in fact, not just doom and gloom stories, how do we get it more relatable? I'll just
I want to come to my neighbor regarding the answer for Mr. Ghafouri. Unfortunately, we have data in Afghanistan. First one is return back to Minister of New Water and Power. They have 147 station for meteorological, for hydrological, and for snow gauge. And same Minister of Mail and Irrigation, they have 96 station for meteorological. Also, our Civil Aviation Ministry, Department of Meteorology, also they have 25 station again. FuseNet and USGS also they have separate station. Just I want to return back. Unfortunately, the professor and all investigator, they don't have access to have such a kind of a data. Since always return back to the government.
that is very costly, but that's only belong to the ministries. All the collection of data, especially for the fluid measurement for the meteorological, like this one. But the next problem of us, that I am fully agree with Mr. Ghafouri, that even we are faced with the difficulties every time, that no one want to share the data with other one. For the first time, Ministry of Water empowered the leadership. They created some thematic group like Hydromet. Please come back under one umbrella and bring all your data. Where is the problem? Where is the gap? How to make it agreeable for all? But we started right now, and I think Mr. Ghafouri with his group, they are hardly working in this part. Hopefully, that will take some time, but for the future, hopefully, we'll be able to have some sharing of data freely without any problems. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to address the comment that that environmental issues just don't have the same sort of appeal that other things do. I think that's a very valid point. So I think in response, the onus is on those of us who work in research institutions as communicators and serve as sort of intermediaries between the research community and the mass media to bring out the connections between the environment, between agriculture and so forth, and the issues that people do care about, because those connections exist. This week, for example, we promoted a story very widely in the international media about new findings suggesting that the use of polluted wastewater for irrigation is at least 50% more common globally than anyone thought before. Why should anybody care about that? Who cares what sort of water farmers are putting on their crops? Nobody, necessarily. But it has health implications. That exposes something on the order of 900 million people to heightened health risks every year. Okay, well, you may not care about irrigation or cotton production or what have you, but you do care about the susceptibility of your children to diarrhea and these sorts of health problems. So that's just one example. I think there are lots of others. The rate at which reservoirs are silted up over years. That sounds like a really dull topic that only hydrologists will talk about. But when the light goes off in your house and you can't watch TV with your kids at 8 o'clock, then it becomes an issue. So again, I think the onus is on those of us who listen to scientists, who try to ferret out science stories in research, obscure research reports. The onus is on us to make these connections and to work with our journalist colleagues to publicize those connections so that people do care about environmental issues and about agriculture and food security and so forth.
Yeah. I would be brief because my other friends from Pakistan, they have discussed their experiences. I also had a similar experience. I did get response from people. It was quite interesting. Some experts who I had talked to for my stories. What I did was I talked to people on both sides of the borders while doing. I did a story on Pak-India water issue and then Pakistan-Afghanistan issue. So the feedback I got from the people from Pakistan, they were very senior experts. They said, "Why have you given them so much space or given their version? So we are already on the wrong side. We are suffering, and you are strengthening their case." So I hadn't given anything. I had just tried to balance it out. So this happens. And secondly, as Ms. Jahanzeb said, the positive stories get more response, but sometimes it's negative ones also get, if they are directly related to your health and something like that. I did a story on this Hodiara drain that flows into Pakistan from Indian Punjab. So it brings a lot of chemical effluents, industrial effluents, all this, and it flows all the way and falls in Ravi. And these farmers on both along its banks, they use it for this irrigation purposes. So after I read the story, I got a lot of the emails because we gave our email address at the end of it, and many of my colleagues and my friends who have read the it on from my Facebook account. They stopped buying this agricultural produce or fruits grown in that area. So if it can had an effect at micro level, might be somebody sitting at the top also noticing it.
Thanks, Shahzada.
Hello. Um, Hello to everybody. I would like to share you some experience of myself. I am senior editor of the leading newspaper in Afghanistan. It's called Hash to Soap. And I am admin of our Facebook pages as well. I just right now want to show you, we did a story about existence of a very dangerous bacteria in drinking water of one of our provinces. It has got 10 shares and more than, for example, 600 likes. And we had positive stories about the environmental issue. It was previously at least 2 weeks ago, we had Eid celebration in Afghanistan. And people are traveling to some sightseeings and making somehow polluted the areas. Eating stuffs and putting the bottles and whatever did it. And the title was, "Do not hurt the nature." Do not hurt the nature. It got 200 likes and 2 comments. And we had a story which is related to politics. The Minister of Energy and Power, Mr. Osmani, was having a news conference telling that Salma Dam is a kind of dam which is being treated all the times. Nobody wants the dam to be somehow maintained, to be somehow utilized by Afghanistan. Previously, there was an attack on Salma Dam, and more than 8 guards was killed. 8 guards of the Salma Dam was killed. And after that, President Rouhani commented that we are concerned about making too many dams on the same rivers, which is somehow shared with Iran. When we wrote that story, could you imagine that story reached to more than 100,000 people? I have the ability to see how many people reached that one. More than hundreds, thousands, and more than 60 shares, and more than maybe 300 comments. It's a kind of issue in Afghanistan as well. If something is related to politics, and if something is related to your identity, to your national interest, it will get more likes, more comments. But I am completely sure nobody, a big amount of people are even not reading the leads of the news. They're just seeing the titles and making judgments that that's wrong, that's blah, 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 something like that. So unfortunately, we face the same things as well. And with the Indus Basin rivers, we as a journalist are always taking care of our audiences. Maybe our audiences will ask that what the Indus River will give to us. I was witnessing here that the biggest benefits goes to Pakistan, then goes to India. Am I right? The most of the benefits will go to these 2 countries. So I am somehow concerned Mr. Iqrar told that the Kabul River is going to be polluted extremely and it will have an effect on the whole Indus River. So why these countries are not putting pressures on Afghan sides to prevent from making more polluted the Kabul River. And we in Afghanistan are somehow young in these issues. We are not in that level even to, for example, sign a kind of treaty that India and Pakistan have between each other. We think that we do not have that capability and that skills to sit to a negotiation tables to debates with each others. That's why you asked if some Afghans are going to have comments regarding these issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You've raised some very excellent points actually. So water is an extremely complex topic, and at times, we don't realize the interconnections. And we live in a very information-heavy age actually. So people's attention spans have really reduced. So, how do we make our news more relevant in today's times? With that, we'll, close this particular session. We will take the points which Joydeep has noted down, points which were raised in this particular session. We will look at it in the next group work that we come to. I'll call upon Nilima, who's doing a short study for us. She'll just talk you through, how we're trying to assess the impact of media and the role of media in these, and in sharing these kind of knowledge.
So it's just, the team at IWMI are following the very good old business principle that you execute, you invest in research to understand the impact, and then develop your strategy ahead. And that is exactly where we are coming in and working with them. We've just initiated the research, but what was a good thought was to probably share that what have we conceptualized as a possible research model to really see that all energies that are working together, which is the journalists, which is the advocacy groups, which is specialists, that can be taken away, and will this study bring some light and understanding to each one? So with that as our understanding, as I have put it, I'm a research person, so I kind of tend to use more language of that kind. So we've seen it as a pre and a post scenario. So our research blocks are through the last year and a period of a little over another year, there have been several journalists that the team has engaged with through one form or the other of a discussion, either through media dialogues or by connecting with you on WhatsApp group or sharing information or answering any queries. So for purposes of understanding, we are classifying this whole body of great professionals as people we have engaged with. Alongside is besides the media houses you represent, there is a whole host of other media that's happening in these three countries. We are largely this study is looking at India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. So we kind of suggested that it would be an interesting research perspective to see that beyond the people you have reached out or who have engaged with you or have an interest in this subject matter, is there something more that's happening in the larger media universe that could bring insights and intelligence to the working? So that set of people, we're calling it as potential media set. Again, taking a leaf out of a research method, it is a pre and a post research that we are doing. The event being specifically that in each of these three countries and with the journalists from these three countries, there have been data, as we have datelined here, in May, in September, and in October, there were conscious media dialogue exercises. So they were structured formats of communication. So we are taking a these dialogue conversations and a post these dialogue conversation period. So that's clearly the kind of framework we are using. So we're at our early first step of our research system. And what we have done is that using various means of aggregating the news articles, and we have put together, and we're very happy to see that in India we have nearly touching 9,000 articles in the time frame that we had, which is roughly about 6 months, that we've seen that a huge corpus of news and information is happening. Similarly, in Pakistan, we see a pretty active dialogue. Afghanistan, the numbers here are a little skewed because we're still to go over and find a way to find archival data for certain languages. And you were very rightly bringing it up with me that are you doing any work in Pashto, and will you be? So we're working on it to be able to source, because pretty much quite a few of these media, and especially online, the physical, the newspapers, they don't have archives, and because we are taking a predated period, it becomes difficult to source the news coverage. But we're working on it. So our start point is that we're using that as a, as we call it, the research material. There is a whole process of looking through. The coverage could be random, but we are largely looking again for storylines. So there's a lot of stories which are happening, which are just about, hey, what's happening around the Indus River. So they could be about a road accident, it could be about a gang. We're going to filter all of that news coverage. We're going to really look at that, hey, Indus Basin as a proposition, whether it is political, socio-economic, is it being discussed? Which is what all of you are engaging with as a content. So we're going through a certain process, and this is currently ongoing while I talk to you. And then we plan to undertake research. And here is where I'd be very happy to take any suggestions that besides some other elements that we are looking at. That so how it works is that I have a team of analysts who are based in Delhi. They're all management and graduates, but have a very strong orientation towards developmental issues too. We've worked on a lot of such mandates, besides working for corporates also. So we understand both the spheres. And what we are basically looking at is that we said that when we get into, so we are also going to read the news articles that have been written by some of you here. And what we're going to be looking at is two aspects of it. We're going to pay attention that eventually, were we to say that, hey, there were these 200 articles out in the Indian press or 400 in Pakistan, what is it that they have conveyed, What is it that in the larger picture can you conclude has got conveyed to the audiences? No one single person could have read all the 200, but what is it more often that they are likely to read or come across as content? And just to make the conversation a little more cohesive for my team, what we have done is we said that, hey, certain aspects of what we understand is in this basin as a mandate, we put it under what we call economic or regulatory aspects. Some of it are political aspects, some of them are developmental aspects, environmental or geographic. I'll just show an application to you, and we'll probably come back to this slide again. At the same time, when they are reading through, and let's say there is a story they are reading, they will conclude various aspects, that they see from here. What they're also doing is what we call favorability is being concluded about. A favorability is something, as Jaydeep mentioned the other moment, that is about understanding what's the tone of the coverage. Now this again, as journalists, you can understand very well that it is fairly scientific, and were we to conclude something or it would make sense. So let's say if any one of you is writing a news article, you would pay attention, hey, well, what kind of a storyline I want to create, what's my headline, do I want to add, what kind of a visual I want to add. So all the ingredients, if I may say, that go toward you forming a news story are kind of the elements we pay attention to and then conclude that what is the likely impact. And here's how we do it is that when we start reading a story idea, we say that we are standing neutral, which is 50. But depending on what I see within that story, I have the opportunity to move up a scale and down the scale, and then somewhere conclude a certain value. It's not really wrong, value is not the word, but just a kind of a numericalization of the possible impact is what we are trying to do here. I'll just be another minute, and I've just pulled out a story that I just browsed and I came across. And probably if I or my team is looking at this story, we're looking at a lot of storylines. We're looking that there are a lot of specialists who are speaking through this story. And enough of our research surveys have shown us with readers that they tend to really understand when specialists talk to them. They tend to take that very well. So a story like this, which brings up that what is the ecological impact of Indus Basin, there is a human story, there is a talk about the political discussions that are going on. So there are multiple things that are written out in this story. So my team will code based on that one slide that I had shown you. And they've also concluded a favorability, which we have put as high as 85. And why we regard this as an excellent piece of journalism is because it serves the purpose of creating great knowledge. And that is what, by and large, everywhere, regardless of wherever we are in the world, we agree that's the key role of journalism. That is to create information and create awareness. And so by that logic, we've brought up this story up to a 85. And so this is how the process is beginning. There are various aspects that we are paying attention to in terms of research and analysis. Data will soon get started worked on, and at some point we will connect back with the IMI team, and then they would use it to the best to build back into their working. But typically how organizations have used the research is that to a large extent, and which is what last was the discussion, it helps storify. Because there could have been ways of writing a story, but could there be more ways to do the story? To try and understand, hey, this kind of a trend I see in Afghanistan, but I don't see this happening in India, could become a storifying idea. And this is really what research, the purpose of this research is to generate leads, that where can we work, how can we work, and can we do it better? And that's what, I would credit them that they are taking a very strong business orientation on this, and saying that we want to really execute it well, and we'll bring in knowledge from research also to help us do this better. And that's what we will be continuing to do, and hope to connect sometime later on this. Thanks, that's all.
Okay, thanks, Neelima.
Thanks.
Neelima, I'm Alok Sikka. Can you, when you are talking about the indices for favorability analysis, I mean, it will vary from the section of society to section of society. And then how are you trying to fix a number, and what are the, because I didn't quite get a concept of favorability indices.
So in this case, and that's a very valid point that you brought up, it is that there is a mandate that we say there's a hypothesis. Just like in a research, there is always a hypothesis. So our hypothesis here is that any storyline which supports that the Indus Treaty, the concept of Indus Basin being an issue, that there are challenges which must be overcome, is acceptable. It's understood that it's a live matter. So any story which accepts that this is a live matter, it has relevance, and doesn't say that, hey, it doesn't matter, there are other things that we should be worrying about, and in this water, in this basin is a non-issue. So we will treat stories which tend to believe that in this basin is a live issue as favorable. Then again, another hypothesis we have for this research is that in case people believe and they report in that manner, or it could be journalists who are writing, or it could be professionals in the storyline who are writing, who say that the treaty per se has worked well, or is beneficial, or is supported. That again is a positive hypothesis, because again the mandate is from IMI. So these are the two bases for our understanding. Or any storyline which is information creating, that is say, hey, the biodiversity is being impacted, or that it is the gender issues are important related to the Indus Basin, or migration is an important consideration. So anything that is also creating awareness about Indus Basin, because that is what the mandate is here sitting in this.
No, but my issue is that when you are giving the score, what are the criteria for giving the scores? Yes, like you said, the 85 or 75,
okay,
whatever.
Criteria, I can take you back to that.
Anyway, the time limitation is there. I can discuss with her in Delhi. Anytime she can visit our office and we can discuss. Okay. Because I have developed number of entities for that.
So great. So this research will also help us understand, the media landscape and how reporting on Indus is happening in various countries. So now, before we break for tea, Joydeep has, broken everybody into groups.
I have jobs for you. Sorry, no free tea. Sorry. Right, okay. So, because we're going to come back after tea and we want story ideas from you, 4 good story ideas, okay? And so I want you to work in groups, and there are plenty of you here who are so used to it that this has become a yawn for you, I know that. So you are not, any of you who think it's a yawn, you are not going to lead any of the teams, all right? Only the new people get to lead the teams who are relatively new to this process. So Esmat, so you are going to lead a team. I'll tell you how you make your team. I'll tell you. You are going to lead one. Jessica, where's Jessica? Yes. So you are going to lead one team. Jayashree, you are leading one team, and Jahanzeb, you are leading the 4th team. 4 teams of journalists. Make your teams during the tea break only 2 riders. Make teams. Your team should not have another Pakistani. Okay? Make your team should not have another Indian, your team shouldn't have another Chinese, your team should not have another Afghan. Okay? Make your team from journalists from India, Pakistan, China. You make your team like that, okay? I want totally teams going across. The second rider is that what you people raised, I've put it up there. Keep it in mind while coming up with your story ideas. Okay? What we are going to do is that you will come up with your story ideas after the tea break. You work in groups. The experts are here. They'll be moving from group to group. Consult them. Whatever you want to do. If you bore them too much, they'll go away for another cup of tea. That's for you to keep them occupied, excited about the whole thing. And after you have done all this, you are going to present. Each group is going to present the story idea, and it will be the job of Solomon and Aya to tell you whether the story is acceptable or not acceptable. Let's go have tea. No, you do it over a cup of tea. Make your tea. I think, I believe we're 16. We're supposed to be 16. Yeah, that's why I made it 16.
So it's the same similar problem to irrigation in Pakistan or where the water this one the water the poor water management goes into that's where it starts to manifest itself initially. So the law is or might be that water should be groundwater pumping should be licensed. Yeah. But I mean there's very poor governance, limiting anarchy, they're not paying for it. And as a result, and I would imagine the government is unable to provide the service. So it's basically become free for all. You just pay rather than provide the service.
We can start paying for a good story. He wants this kind of
That's what he thinks. Well, I guess I don't know whether it makes the story the issue is important enough. I'm not sure how journalists decide on their stories. I can ask. If you want, I can
So
translate.
because there is a problem of groundwater extraction and probably overexploitation of groundwater, what are the, apart from scarcity in the city, what is this scarcity doing to the urban lifestyle?
Quality is deteriorating. They're noticing that. There's, anecdotally, it's becoming salty and its taste is changing. Where individuals are pumping the water, they are exploiting by charging exorbitantly.
Oh, so even privately they're selling water?
It's all for sale.
It's a business?
They've even got private metering, but no government metering. People love private enterprise.
In fact, that would be a good story.
So it's beginning to appear in the form of exorbitant water prices, water charges. So they're exploiting it for free. They add some value by the pumping and the network and then they're charging whatever they want.
So if I were if I were in Kabul, I would like my story would start with this as a business, and I would see somebody who's doing this as a business from his home or from wherever the pumping station. He has a lot of land and and how much money he makes, and then he sells it and all. And does he approve of that?
This is quite flexible to where you want the story to start from.
Okay.
He was just giving the example of somebody
Would he know? Would he know if we can, like, if we could go to a government, the government, and ask them that how many such people are doing, and then I mean, could we get data on this? And they have this place where they extract water from ground and they're filling up those gallon bottles and selling it as filtered water. And they also have filtration plants also in their homes. So the government knows they're still doing this business as business.
Yeah, in many metro cities in India as
Yeah.
well. It is happening.
So I mean, this would be great if we know how this person does his business, and we can find out other people if we know. Has he already done such a story? This is actually a water authority. These are water authorities.
Privatized, yeah. It's very interesting.
You're in demand, are you?
Highest bidder. Highest bidder. I'm taking. How can I refuse that? I'm doing a little bit of translation, and also.
किया आपने?
So what's the story coming out of this group?
बहुत अच्छी है.
अच्छा. Groundwater exploitation, Kabul, urban story. Okay, very interesting.
Okay, which group is ready?
यहाँ पे भी सेल हो रहा है ना पानी.
Okay, you are ready? Who's presenting?
Hassan will present. Hassan will present.
Okay. You, everybody, listen.
No, no, he knows
No, you go. I've been rejected. I want this to be a tough one, okay?
तुम अपनी qualifications check करवाओ.
All groups, please. Kamina, please. One. Remember, you are all fighting. You are all fighting for very limited space. So, when they come up with a story idea, I want other groups to shoot it down to the best of their ability. Okay? And as you would do in a newsroom. As you would do in an actual newsroom. Do it that way. Okay? Don't let them get away like this. Come on. And then final decision lies with Solomon and I. Okay?
Use the mic if you can.
Everybody listening. Yes, you're
Ismat? Ismat came up with a very, very good idea, and we've all kind of encouraged him to do this story because we can't. It's on groundwater exploitation and in Kabul, in the city. And the idea is that he would go to one of the private, where this guy sells water to the neighborhood through a pipeline. You know, they have they've even set up pipelines. And then he will go to the seller, the buyer, how much he pays for it and whether it's expensive or not. He'll find out, he'll go to water experts to find out what kind of water quality it is. Then he'll probably, venture to hospitals to find out what are the hazards of using this untreated, unfiltered water. And but I think more importantly, this business of selling water it is, and what it is doing to the groundwater in Kabul itself. क्या करें? And he will also go to obviously the government to find out, because there is a legislation under which they cannot exploit a certain feet beyond. They can't go certain feet beyond that level. So what is this legislation? Is it like so inactive? Why aren't they penalized? Are they being protected by feudals or politicians? Who are these people? I mean, it'll be nice to know the profile of these people who are doing this big business and getting away with everything.
Okay. Reactions from this group?
Oh, it's not boring.
All right.
Boring. Boring. Our story idea is boring. Huh? Why? Yes, we were supposed to do only one story. Yeah. Because we just have one person doing
Any
it.
other reaction from this group? Boring and too narrow, right? So these are the two.
Kabul, Afghanistan has 6% of share for the Indus, and this is not justice to focus on Kabul. It should be focused on Pakistan and India mostly. So that's why it is somehow not interesting.
Not interesting because it is too not focused on the basin. Yes.
But I think what is the importance of this issue? I think
They have a defender.
Thank God for that.
Some of our colleagues are here. One of the interesting topic, I'm completely sure, if the contaminated plume, especially from Kabul city, goes to the Pakistan, India, that will be the big
a catastrophe for the water quality of the Pakistan, for the Pakistan, even India. So in this case, especially water contamination. That's the most important.
Okay, I personally agree with that because as Zofin knows, we have got a story idea on exactly this from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right?
Yeah.
On what is happening to the. Okay, but yes, I'll come to you. But let this group react first. Yes, what is your reaction?
In any case, I have to shoot it down.
Shoot it down.
Otherwise, your story is not there. There's no space for your story otherwise.
I think this issue is not new. It has been done to death.
It has been done to death?
It has been done to death.
Has it?
Not
Has
about
it
this
been done to
Afghanistan
death?
case, in other parts. So this groundwater extraction, so you will give it to.
No, it's not just about groundwater. It's about the business of doing water privately, like selling water, which should be the government's job. Supplying water is being done by private enterprises.
Yeah, it has been done.
And there's a legislation, and there's a price to be paid, but there are people who are getting away with it. They're flouting the law.
But you have to do it in a different way to sell it to the retail.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Next comment from Simon.
As a reader, I would find it of high interest. And in particular, if I could learn something from your approach with what I've seen in the Kabul River running, which is highly polluted and which transfers pollution down to the downstream countries. So I would combine that in your article. I think it's of high interest.
All right, the judges are taking note of both defenders and attackers.
I also think that it's an important topic, no doubt, but the way it has been planned, I didn't find it very catchy, and that is why there was all this thing that it's boring. One is that it doesn't come out very clearly. What is that you are trying to find out? What if once you find out everything, what is the output? What is that we will get? Can you tell us that? Like, what is that new we will find? We know they are supplying water which they are not supposed to supply. We know supplying water is government's responsibility. Another question is that I doubt whether they will allow you to conduct this study because most of these are owned by large politicians. They may throw you out from the country too. That's another challenge. But the point is, what is that you're trying to find, the output?
I'm not sure if the story has been done from I don't know if their story is done on this, but it would be, like if it were my country or in my city, Karachi, where people talk about the tanker mafia, but they don't talk to the people who own this business.
Yeah, because you don't want to get your throat cut,
Yeah, but the thing is that it would be nice to know how much money they make, why are they doing this, how do they get away with it, who are they protected by, and I'm sure you can get these answers if you do it in a roundabout way, if their names don't come or something like that, and then, find out why is this business such a lucrative business. Because in the end, you will find out that the government is not doing its job. So I would think it makes for a good human interest because you're putting in voices of a businessman, of the person who doesn't get it from the main line, so has to, survive like this only.
You know something? My feedback is that between the two of you, you have undersold a good story.
Okay.
Yeah, you haven't pushed it hard enough. The sexy angles of it.
Okay, so give
this
us
story
ideas.
has very sexy angles. Yeah, I'm going to let the judges tell you what the sexy angles can be. All right. We shall take that into account. We shall take that into account. Now let the judges say what feedback they have.
For me, it's interesting because recently my newspaper published a similar angle, a story. A small city in Ethiopia, which is called Sululta, will host almost more than half of the bottling company in the country is found in that very small city, and it's a private matter, the companies. But within just 15 years after the bottling industry has boomed, based on that city, environmental disasters. The city has lost most of its unique character as a result of that bottling company. And a rehabilitation project is costing almost more than the establishing capital of that bottling companies. And the issue which initiated is Nestle Water, which is known in Europe, which bought one company, a local company, and tried to actually rehabilitate the lost area. That was a project, discharging its social responsibility. But the story runs in our newspaper is actually showcasing that area in Sululta, but trying to tackle the issue how a private matter and a state responsibility can actually be going together. And for me, Kabul can work. The story is not, in my own judgment personally and from my experience, you can see the country's issue and how privately supplying water have created positive or negative outline on evaluative and investigative story can be done based on showcasing what's happening in Kabul and then trying to have a general overview of the country. So it can be salvaged if the issue is about that one country cannot tell the story, but mainly if the facts indicate that there are many things that can inspire, and then the Kabul story can represent as well the countries. And it's the way which is written, the people, the companies, the government, and the different items which will make a story, a very good feature story can be incorporated. So I think, yes, it's undersell, but otherwise, for me, it can be a very good and entertaining story, and I would have approved the story.
Yeah, actually, my judgment, I find it is very interesting, and but I see that you have to focus on the social impacts and the human. So if you start your story by or your article by a story from a human being, or such how the people have troubles because of this issue, and give such a story about the man, like you said, I think it will be sell a lot. And actually, and if you you know, in the international law, give the can we say, it gives the right to have the water resources for free, not to pay for the water. So it is internationally in the international law. So if you insist on this point, it will be more important to insert the human rights with the story, not only speaking about the water, just to link the human rights with the story. And you can also speak about the black markets of water. I think in my country,
what makes it sexy.
In my country, this is a big problem that in some season, because of the lake, because of the water scarcity, some companies use this problem and raise the prices of the water. So and many people in the poor areas in the countryside cannot have any access for the water. So I think this is a common and wide spread in the world nowadays. So it's not only the issue of Kabul or the small city, but you can link the local problem with what's happened worldwide.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a round of applause for this group? Okay, good, thank you. Who wants to go next? Janzeb? Okay, come on.
All right, so we kind of looked at that piece of paper first and based our story around it. So the big idea is that we are going to trick people into reading it by making it look like a travel blog. So it is a journey, and it's an experience of the Indus and the Basin, all the way from the glaciers, coming all the way down to Karachi. And it's a story of three people, one in China, one in India, and one in Pakistan. And it's not about politics. So we chuck politics out, and we focus on specific areas, and we focus on specific topics while we're moving through this entire journey. which, by the way, is largely punctuated with photos, videos, and 360-degree photos, whatever we can do to keep people feeling like it's a travel blog. So what you'll experience is from China, because their region is apparently very, very difficult to access, what they're going to do is they're going to find an individual who can tell that story from that area. And they'll be able to connect it over to India. And India will be taken from the point of view of a journalist who is moving from the mountains to the plains, and what happens and what they see from the mountains to the plains, and what the different issues are when you are moving from these two regions. In Pakistan, it goes all the way from the glaciers through Punjab and Sindh, looking at the specific issue of the damming of the water and how it's affecting the populations in each of those areas. And that's basically how we end up coming to the end. The way it's connected is that you almost get to see the thoughts of the person as they're traveling. So if you're talking about dams, you're actually talking about the meeting of certain people and what they have to say about their area. For example, here's a tube well, and I meet this person who has actually owned this tube well, and I ask him the question about the dams and how that would affect them in that area. And the other thing we thought of was how to frame it in a positive light, because there are a lot of fairly serious issues over here. And what we decided to do is that each of the stories would kind of start with a focus on the potential of what could be done. You know, the potential that, for example, Pakistan has if it managed to dam all its water properly. So that potential will give someone the sense that, oh, okay, this has got something good coming out of it, even though there are these issues which then follow. The other thing we would do, of course, is we would focus on the beauty of this entire journey. It's aesthetic, but it's necessary because it draws people in, and they can relate to it even on the level of, wow, this would make a good, this would make a good vacation, adventure style. And focusing on people will also give it a certain positive element. You know, we've taken the politics out of it, so it's not about, the issues between Pakistan and India and when the water flows over, etc. And hopefully that will make it engaging enough with the photos and the videos to draw in the average reader. Of course, between this, we will have experts bringing in their voices just to, give it a little more depth. So it's a balanced piece, but the main point being it's qualitative and it's an experience which you will kind of go through. Yeah.
Thanks. Before I ask the groups to react, let me clarify.
Oh, we have some specifics. So it's about 1,500 words from each area. It's going to take 2 months on the part of Pakistan, India, including the writing and the multimedia, and about 1 month from China. So 2 months to complete the entire thing.
Yeah. Thanks. Because I was going to clarify to the room that Jahanzeb is talking multimedia here. So
yeah.
He is talking about a web story. Okay. Reactions? Reactions from this group?
Idea of a travelogue actually. But what I didn't get was what are the issues that they're going to talk about apart from the dam.
Well, that's because I know Pakistan really well.
But you had Chinese on your team. They didn't tell you what the problems they have and what they are going to talk about.
Do you guys want to come and do a quick 30-seconder?
Are you following the river?
Tell their story. Yes, we are going to follow the river, and especially the glacier.
Oh no!
Anybody else wants to say
oh
something?
no!
You want to say something?
We can team up and make this faster. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a roadmap. It's not very pretty. Yeah.
I have few observations. I mean, rather than connect.
rather than connecting it with the dams issue, I think talk about the natural ecology, the ecosystem that used to be from China, starting from China, when the waters enter India, and then it comes to Pakistan. So it would be more exciting if you connect the journey of those individuals. What were their experiences? Let's say 3 decades ago, 2 decades ago, and how this urbanization, and then you can bring in the issue of dam also, that this has changed the whole ecology, and the river itself is now being impacted through these human interventions. And the life of the river or the natural ecology and the ecosystems around that, these are the things that you should bring up in the story, and some visuals, some pictures around that, and how you can see the future if these practices are going to continue. So that would be a more, I guess, interesting idea rather than collecting it specifically with the dams.
Yeah, we actually thought of this. In fact, we thought, we initially thought, why not just one grand theme and explore that from each area? For example, the climate change one. So climate change in each of the countries, and we're moving through there and seeing the impact on it. But then we opted to, because each of these areas had very, very different issues, which were quite quite vastly different. For example,
It's also very big.
yeah, for example, in Pakistan, the population issue and how it consumes the water is perhaps like very, very key, versus in China, where the glaciers and their melting is an issue, so climate change. So we decided to break it up into these different areas and explore them.
Yes, your reaction to this story idea. No, first you react. I want reactions first.
We have another. We just now we have another partner from Afghanistan, but he's gone at last. So I think maybe we just miss a part. We miss a part here. Maybe you can invite another colleague from.
Part of this, such a traveler could definitely be on the Kabul and Kunar rivers. Who wants to react to the story idea?
I just want to appreciate your idea. It's very nice idea. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
In return, you have to appreciate ours.
Does anyone know what
Well played.
you say, or you just say nice things? Who wants to say just nice things? Keep quiet. There's no point in saying just nice things. Come on.
It's expensive.
I want to know who the audience are, because you are talking about travel all the way. It's like a travelogue, right? So who are the audience? Is it like a natural graphic kind of style, or it's more like a separate interactive online project?
So, yeah, we imagined a very general audience, a very broad, this is a broad piece, so it's not necessarily, we thought about it, we were like, well, should we focus on policymakers and stuff like that? But it didn't work with our format, because if each section is 1,500 words each, that doesn't give us enough time to go and also look at enough depth, which would give a policymaker something to chew on. This is mostly for general population, to get them interested in the issues, even on this broad level.
First,
Taste.
The groups have commented.
Yeah.
So, your turn.
Done?
I think I sat with them, and I thought, the way I understand, and perhaps those words may not have come in from Janzeb and others, I thought this is really linking the Indus Basin, because it is starting from the China and coming down here. And of course, I think in some form the Kabul joined in later. That could be also as should come in to show it a holistic view of the Indus.
Sure.
Because Kabul River is coming into the river Indus. So that is just an amendment of what I saw, because the Afghan delegate came in at the end, therefore the input may not have gone in. Having said this, I think there is one important thing that I thought in this story is that it's a continuous story of the Indus and of the people. Now, of the people, it's not the question of dams. He may have emphasized more on the dams, but as I read it and when I heard them all, they were talking about the issues that are related to climate change, issues related to water, issues related to environment as you travel down the Indus. And this is how it affects the people. Because some of he did mention that there will be interviews, and the interviews of the guys traveling, he say, hey, what's happening here? You have, this dam is being built here or not built in here. And also, the people who are affected, for example, disaster came, you're traveling down and you see Atabad Lake in Pakistan. So obviously when you're coming down, you would say, hey, what happened to this Atabad Lake? How did it create? So a story about Atabad in short few words will come in, and how it impacted the people. So I think the story is strong in the sense that number one, the entire basin. Number two, people, impact of the three things, environment, water, and climate change on the people. So people are the focus. That's how, therefore, I thought it was a good story. And I don't know, I sat here later on, and I thought their story, I'm commenting, their story and your story are different. But I don't know why you're saying this, because I thought your story has also a good value. So,
Okay, we shall come to your story. Let the judges react.
Just one quick comment.
Yeah, sorry.
I think what you need to add to this is a very nice title to your travel log, because it's not there at the moment.
I tried to think of something, but yeah, we didn't get it.
At this stage, nobody thinks of anything.
So that would be very catchy for people to read.
I don't blame them for that. Go ahead.
Which is interesting because the basin is one system, and there are part of it. If we consider the countries as chapters of a whole book, and then there are different writers already focusing on the particular priority in the specific countries, but trying to linking what is considered to be a very important aspect in one country might not get the same emphasis. So the story might actually say that if a farmer is speaking about that particular aspect becoming a problem, so the contrasting can be included, so that the writers in different parts can be reminded that the whole system. And I mean, I was in the table and I was listening to it. So they were talking initially about climate change. So it may not be a man-made. So it's a nature of result, and sometimes a man-made infrastructures or a man-made activities can help us control the natural consequences, bad consequences from nature, and as well also our actions can actually cause the nature to react in another way. So trying to actually see the impacts, both how man-made projects and activities can actually impact on the other. So starting from the above, below down, I think trying to see the both sides and trying to connect it as a whole story by different writers, emphasizing on it will show these two contrasting aspects. And in that aspect, I think as a journey, because a personal observations will be included, experts will be talking, so there will be more color into it.
Actually, I'm very impressed by this idea because, I think that you can add something like science fiction on the story. If you start by your journey to discover the mysterious for the Indus River, even the electricity or the dam itself, it can be a mysterious of the water. So I think that the water always have the power to give a new story for the people. But you, at the first, you have to know what's your audience, because promoting or doing such videos or multimedia media like contact like that, it always missed, because will you present it on the national television or on national media or internationally? So, and who is care about that? Does the local people want to know more about this issue or no? So I think it's very important to focus on the audience at first, just to convince these people that you have a new story and you have something to tell them about.
Thanks.
another thing, during the journey, try to find a new common or linking elements between all the countries.
Yeah.
We have an experience in the Nile Basin. We have a small group of musicians. They issue a project called the Nile Project. I think you know that. This project is collect musicians from all of the Nile Basin countries, and they work together in one concert, and they produce a new music. It's like one track to connect all the cultural of the Nile. So if you try
That's really
to
cool.
yeah.
I like that.
Because Zofin is actually putting the music together.
Oh,
right
really?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting the music together right now. Put it on the website.
Uh-huh.
As you go down, your music changes.
Yeah.
The folk songs change. Zofin's
Yeah.
working on it right now.
That's nice.
And if you find some common tracks and you can provide your multimedia movies by this, it will be very attractive.
Yeah, I agree. No, great. Thanks.
Well, my one reaction is how will your story be different from Empires of the Indus by Alice, Albania?
It'll be prettier and I'll have 360-degree photos.
All right, if you insist. Jessica, your turn.
No, actually, that's I think it's a very important point to make, that the format really defined this story. So it's a given that if you give people a lot of beautiful photos, it doesn't matter how many times you show the same region even again and again. They'll look at those photos again and again.
Nivedita wants to add.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Okay. Alice's book has been selling very well. All right. Okay. I'll take your point. Jessica, your turn. Your team's turn. Whoever is presenting.
Full team. Good afternoon, everyone. And our team actually, Amita is actually he pitched the idea, and then every team member contribute to expand the topic. So I will be representing our team to present our story idea. Actually, we are focusing on the Indus water treaty, and I will explain a little bit. This treaty was created in 1960s between India and Pakistan. So it's mainly focused on the transboundary rivers between these two countries. And this treaty has already been lasted for over 60 years? No, 50 years. Yeah, since. So, so the background is recently there's more tension on the Pakistan side of concern about building more of Indian side, building more dams on the three rivers that were included in the treaty. So our focus will be on whether there's a possibility of updating this treaty from the technical point of view to make some changes, to make certain applicable usage of the water resources, as well as whether there's possibility of expanding this treaty to include more countries into this treaty. Let's say Afghanistan, let's say China. So this is the focus of our story. And we will start with a human story first to attract, to avoid it being too bored for readers. So we'll just start from the Pakistan point of view. I mean, we might interview a farmer in the Pakistan river, in the river region, to reflect their worry about whether India will be building more dams on the upstream. So we'll just start from this story. And then we'll develop it into, shift into the Indian side. Because back in India, there's a more recent talks on whether there should be updating of this treaty to make more as I said, to make more applicable use of the water resources on the upstream. And then we'll develop it into interviewing some of the technicians or scientists on the possibility of updating the treaty and its influences. And then we'll also talk about the issue of between Afghanistan and Pakistan, because this is a quite similar issue. And in this aspect, I think to include the Chinese to include China element into it is make some small anecdote of comparing the Brahmaputra River issue. I mean, this is also similar. It's like upstream of Brahmaputra building dams, possibility of building dams that influence upon the Indian side. So we just add some comparable element into this to say about this general situation. And then we will develop into to expand the treaty to include all these countries. So this is generally the story idea of the whole the plot. But I think any Yes, of course. It's one of the benefits is cost effective. We won't take like 2 minutes to finish this story. We just and we won't cost too much money on this.
Right.
And,
I
yeah.
get that. As an expert, I get that. Reactions?
Not to.
What's your problem?
I don't know. It's in the Indus Water Treaty, and they want to include 2 other countries in it. It's going to be difficult, and I don't know how it will be taken. It'll get more sensitive. When a story is just between India and Pakistan, you can read it, because with the nuances, it makes it interesting. When you include Afghanistan and China, it'll just dilute it. And may not have that kind of an audience that you want for your story. I'm talking about the story itself, not the issue itself.
Okay, that's a point of view, that adding Afghanistan and China will dilute your audience. That's a point of view. I don't know if that is true or not, false.
I'm just an
It's
observation.
a fear you have.
Yeah.
Interesting point of view. Azim.
I mean, I just want to see what's different in this story. I mean, there's a flood of articles recently in all the papers. So, I mean, you need to think about what new would you bring in this story. It would be hard to differentiate. There's another story in another paper.
Okay, reactions from the second table. Yeah, go ahead, Nivel.
Well, I personally support the idea of bringing all 4 countries on board, but
Yeah.
this particular thing, all the details in one story, I think it's too wide.
Okay, reaction.
Okay, I think that it's more related with politics. I don't know, maybe they are going to visit some politicians. I don't know if there is any conflict between the ideas. Maybe then that will make maybe that will make the story more interesting.
I
But
think the
sometimes I don't know if you can
political
get access to all of the government officials.
Because we have, there's 2 main focus in this. One is the updating, the technical point of view of updating the treaty. The other is expanding it into other countries. So the second one, I mean, expanding it into other countries will, of course, have the politician's point of view to include, let's say, it's a possibility of it.
I just wanted to, respond to some of the points that's been raised. See, this story was thought of as sort of an exploratory story and has a background to it. The background being what we saw 6 months back. There was fresh tension between India and Pakistan. The questions are not new, and there was some noises in Pakistan and in India to abrogate the treaty and move forward, sort of a thing. Now, as he pointed out, there already have been quite a few stories in so how do we make this different? Now the difference obviously would come in the kind of rigor that we put in this story. most of the stories are what have come. They quote one expert and say, so depending on the expert, they will, someone would say, no, no, it's fine, don't tinker with it, or someone else will say, no, no, this. Yeah, problem being created by India or problem being created by Pakistan, and therefore there is a need. So the idea is this we are not getting into. So we have to be very careful. We are not touching the politics of it. We are looking at whether there is any merit in where there is any technological ground for having a review at the treaty with the ultimate objective of maximizing the benefits of water sharing. Is there any ground? And for that, we need to speak to as many people as possible, bring in much more rigor, look at every aspect, and maybe, someone might even say, look, you know, posing a question like this at this point of time would not be correct because it's likely to be hijacked by hardliners on both sides. That's quite possible. But just looking at whether there is any merit in a review at or this treaty, since it has withstood the last 65 years, there is no merit at all, and therefore we should just leave it like that. It's in any case a very delicate balance, and we should not tinker with it. So yes. So I mean, what happens is generally when most of the disputes come up, the disputes relate to what we call design. We don't know. So some of the like people when I actually had explored this the idea of doing this story, it didn't work out at that point of time, but most of the things relate to what they call design. And then one of the things that came up was some of the designs that are sort of allowed now were not thought of in 1960. They're strictly not under the provision of the Indus Water Treaty, but probably they are much better designed now, and therefore they should be allowed. So those kind of questions we would need to pose to genuine experts. And again, as I said, the difference in this sort of story is the kind of rigor that we put in the story. Right.
Let this group react and then I'll go to the experts. Anybody from this group wants to react? No? Then I'll answer them. You bored them to death. They're not even bothering to
Okay, I would say this is a very, very bold proposal, and I appreciate it, honestly, because one of the things, coming from an institutional background, I would say that one of the things that we miss out is that once we have a treaty, we forget about it. What you are basically asking to do is evolve the treaty. Things have changed, time has changed. Now can we re-look at the aspects which is already there in the treaty? So that is one thing I really liked about it. But then, having said that, the most important thing is that you will have to understand the treaty very, very well. I don't understand the Indus Treaty at all because it's completely technical. The pages, which are the references, are, I mean, the appendix are bigger than the treaty itself. So much bigger. So you have to understand it, because once you understand it, then you can see what are the positives, what are the loopholes, and how can you make it better than what it is. And hopefully you would not again suggest that it should be more technical. It should have many other aspects as well. The other thing that I liked about your presentation is that you are asking South Asian countries to move from bilateralism to multilateralism, which is an excellent suggestion. If it can come from media, I think that can be very, very good, because none of the South Asian countries are actually, particularly China, India, is interested for multilateralism. So these are the 2 points. I think there is a lot of things that you have to do, but in principle, I liked your proposal. That's my personal view.
Good. Okay, back to Azim. Oh, no, hang on.
I mean, for me, I think it's a great story idea. Primarily because, I mean, what someone who was just talking before me just mentioned, that no one understands the treaty. So, I mean, if there's no go-to resource for someone like me, who's a journalist, who's not an expert, to understand what the treaty is, then, I mean, how can we really move ahead from this issue? So if you really tackle this as a story, as an explainer, as an explainer of what the Indus Water Treaty is, and maybe look at it as an issue as okay, so it deals with trans boundary issues, but it doesn't deal with climate change. So have like what all it deals with, which countries are involved, and whether the treaty does have any clause which does say that there can be cooperation or expansion. So looking at the treaty and understanding it, which is obviously going to be a lot of work, but someone has to do it. And if the experts aren't doing it, maybe a journalist can do it. And to break it down and then to really show where cooperation can take place and where it can't take place. So I think on personally, I would love to have, let's say, Indus Water for Dummies story, you know.
Very small. I see the merit in the idea, but the thing is, it's more of a technical note. I don't see it's a media story because you've got to involve the expert along with the media person. But the rigor that they are thinking of putting in this story, it would be published somewhere as a technical note, and that could be then further kind of explained by the media. It's not a story in the article from the very outset.
All right, okay. The most important person in this room for this is from this point of view. Yeah.
Okay, I think the idea of the Indus Basin Treaty to also have the others on a similar pattern is an excellent one. I'm fully supportive of it. However, some realities of politics as it exists in our world, I must share with you because I've been party to it in ways more than one. Number one, this treaty has to be seen in a global context. Right now, we have what World Bank has brokered this for Pakistan and India. Now you are asking, will the World Bank now draw in others is another question. But even if they were to do it, neither Pakistan nor India will accept it for a reason that this treaty, as it is, if you open it beyond what need to be explained within it, context, nobody will like it. And in fact, it will be extremely dangerous because each other country will feel that even this will not be there. Then you have no treaty which exists today. So therefore, this is a good thought, but it is not practical. So that's number one. However, having said this, I'm not rejecting it. I would like to propose to you because I was reading this. Let's have same treaty between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So my suggestion will be that your last line, you take the base as this, talk about this treaty. However, in the process, you will understand the technicalities of the Indus Basin Treaty. However, the Indus Basin Treaty also needs to be updated, but that can only be updated between the two who are already the signatories. Okay, leaving that issue, you take this issue saying it's an example to follow, and therefore we want to. Now, how do you want to put the picture? You're bringing your point to bring 4 countries in it, you can do it. Because right now, Pakistan and India has both joined very important, they become the members of SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Last week's story. And now that both are there, and now you can say, okay, since this has been there, we will like China and of course the SCO, which is Pakistan and India, to come in to have this other treaty also in place under the umbrella of SCO maybe, rather than World Bank. So you drew in the Chinese into it because this is why China in it, because China is an Indus Basin country. You already you don't have it here, the India. You have brought India also, that this was a good example. So let's talk about it. So they will also be, and then Pakistan is a lady member, Afghanistan will be there. This will also fulfill what has just been said by a couple of voices, that multilateralism will also be promoted. Because if you go Afghan Pakistan, then it's bilateral. But if you want to, which is a very good idea, to bring in the multilateralism, because the multilateralism in a way has failed in terms of SARC, if we were to see. But SCO is a very stronger one because it has got Russia in it, it has got China in it, it has got various Central Asian countries, and now you have Pakistan and India. So what will be how you should present it, that since this was a successful model of 57 years survived, wars and etc., etc., therefore we would like to have a similar one, and either the World Bank which support it, but this should be brought in with the politically, with the blessing of SCO, which has got India, Pakistan and China in it. Thank you.
I just want to highlight the importance of all-inclusive agreements on natural resource management. And the UN has started drafting a law in 1966, and that law has got a consciousness only in 2014. That's like 3 years ago. How difficult negotiating a water issue is an example. And also in our basin, a 1959 agreement between 2 countries trying to define the water governance for the other countries has become a stumbling block for the region. That's why the latest agreement is called Comprehensive Framework Agreement, trying to include the other remaining parts into the agreement. But now we are arguing over that document because 2 countries are still not part of it. So if they are not part of it, then in the name of trying to include them, the same problem is happening. So what I mean is, I heard from the experts and from the participants that the Indus agreement is still hard to understand. And then I would suggest the story can just how it can benefit from being inclusive, and how an opportunity to change it, not only to include the other actors which are affected by the same basin, but what can be included, what can be changed, including how the language of the agreement can be rewritten in a good way, and what benefits that the remaining countries getting back into, and all interested member countries being member into it can be written, so it can serve both things. One is benefiting from being all comprehensive, an agreement, and at the same time also trying to catch up with time, because things have changed since this agreement. And I think that way not only will the story be explaining about the agreement, but also the necessary changes that will bring benefit to the whole region.
Yes. Actually, it is very important issue, the legal aspects, but you need to make it more attractive for the readers, especially if you focus on, or if you introduce it to the ordinary audience who cannot understand the legal aspects, and as well to convince your editor-in-chief to publish such an article like that with the daily priority on the editorial agenda for your newspaper. So I think to make it newsworthy, you have to compare between this agreement, and if the country take steps to start negotiate on this treatment or not, such to put something like to encourage the government or the policymakers to do that. And I think my advice for you is not to depend on the local experts, especially in such issues like the sharing an agreement on the sharing water, because my experience in Egypt, when I'm writing about the CFA, which is a controversial treaty, when I interviewed a local expert, he just speak about the Egyptian perspective. And he never ever said something belonging to the international law or the transboundary law. So it's very important to have sources from the UN, World Bank, any other international institution who work on the international or the transboundary law.
Thank you. Actually, that last point is a very important one. I'm sorry, Dr. Ikrar. Yeah.
Please stay with the people of Afghanistan to live for a little time in a peace. Right now, the more problematic point is transboundary issue with Afghan people. I am fully, I agree with this one. That's really very, very difficult. Not local and regional, but must be, I agree with you, some international lawyer who work a lot. But we are suffering from long-term time. So in this case, just I want to say, please stay with the peace. How to bring the peace? How to, we at least we keep our next generation from the external conflict on water. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Applause for the group. Last story idea of the day. Come on. Yes, go ahead. Sorry. If you don't shout, I don't notice.
I'm just raising hand. Actually, I wanted to make a point. Instead of analyzing the treaty, what can be done is why Afghanistan and China would be interested, and what is the perspective of the policymakers there, and why India and Pakistan would challenge or accept it, and what are the challenges, views and perspective of the policymakers. So I thought that might be a good idea to start. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. So before I start, just a little bit of background on how we are going to do this. We are going to have our editors on board, and it's like a coalition of environmental journalists who are tracking a story on the people who are dependent on the river, on Indus, who are directly dependent, who live near the river and about their lives. And the peg of the story is the Daimar Basha Dam, the cascade of dams, and how it's going to impact the lives of common people who are living near the river. So the stories will be published. It's a series that's going to be published in the Times of India, in your organization, so all 4 publications. And there will be both a print component as well as a web component. And so basically we are looking at who are the faces, who are the people, and what kind of problems affect them. For example, how long does it take? So women in Tibet, for instance, how far do they have to walk to get water? So there will be a story on, these are mostly human interest stories. We are looking at what their lives are about. Then there is, so how the river basically ties people together in 4 countries. Kabul river pollution, like you said, that the fecal coliform levels are going up. So basically looking at a city story in Kabul, but linking it to the global issue. Then, about how in the coastal areas, how people who were dependent on shrimp farming are now sort of changing their livelihoods or do not have livelihood opportunity anymore. How climate change affects men and women differently. That could be one story that we could look at. Then, what else? Industrial, in Punjab, how the health of farmers who are dependent on polluted groundwater, and how deep do they have to dig to get to groundwater. So these are the kind of stories. These are mostly human interest stories, and we plan to run it as a series in all of these 4 publications.
Goodies. Okay, reactions.
Before you are going to give reactions, I would like to say that all positive and supportive comments will be gifted.
Sophie, do you want to speak now? No, he still doesn't want to speak. Okay. Come on. What's your reaction? Group's reaction?
Sorry, I just want to add something. Yes, that's what I'm going to add. So it's going to be print and online version, but it's mainly we will have stories, we have photos, but most importantly, I think the thing that will differ from the travelogue is the infographic part, which we didn't mention. So we will set some criteria, like from top to bottom, what's the GDP is like per capita, and what's the water resource per capita, to give people an idea of how life varies from the upstream to downstream and what kind of challenges. Basically, we're trying to use these phases to illustrate the challenges from upstream to downstream. What's life is really like living there, living in the basin, and the basin obviously is the tide.
So each story will have a data component as well.
Every story has a data component. Okay,
My only criticism would be that you're going to have to figure out a way in which to make this feel like to make it feel like a series. Right now, when you were describing each of these things, it sounded like just a random, independent, interesting story. But as a reader, I wouldn't realize that they were part of one series. There'd have to be some way to make it cohesive. You know? Yeah.
That would have been my reaction.
Yeah.
I think it's so our theme is about faces. It's about the interfaces. I think an easier way to put it together is to do individual features. I don't know how to. It's like
Any reaction
for individuals, like the individual will represent the problems. We tell stories about his life.
Yeah,
and
I think
the daily.
And it's very specifically on people who are living near the river. It's not about the countries as such. So that's what.
Okay, can I say something about it? Okay. We have more opinion here because I think that you are telling stories of the basin, so you've got to tell a whole story. The story about a different country, it should cover the 4 countries. But in this part, China don't have almost have no population in there. So I think that's a question. You have no story of people.
No, not many population doesn't mean there's no population.
You're going to talking about GDP and something. Economic development.
Okay.
I think that's a big
so
question.
this is actually an important issue because we're dealing with underdevelopment issues there about poverty upstream in the Ali County in Tibet. So this is a very underdeveloped area in China overall, and I believe it can be one of the least developed around the basin as well. So this is actually an important issue to address, which is not appeared in coverages about China or about the river itself. So far.
It's not a zero population area. There are people there. They're mostly pastoralists. Shepherds and yak herders, most of them. But it is not zero population. No.
I think why we want to do these phases is we want to provide the parallel perspective about. So there are people living along in this basin, and people have different cultural background, religions, whatever, but they all depend on this river. We want to tell the story that how people's life can differ from where they are, but still we want to tie this together as they are the habitants in the basin, just to put a face to that. And we want to address the data issue because we haven't really got the data yet, but it represents certain percentage of GDPs in South Asia, and how many people rely on it, and how many GDP is generated from it. The food basket, like Pakistan, how they feed the rest of the region. It's more like this. It's a parallel narrative.
No, one thing that I wanted to know was why is Indus Basin so special to this story? I mean, this story can be told from any other basin as well. So why would you choose Indus Basin to say this?
For this fellowship.
Shall I tell you something? When we actually asked for fellowships, we didn't get a single application from China.
Okay, my fault.
Yes, go ahead. do any of the experts want? Oh, yeah, okay. Panchali wants to react. Oh, you want to react first? Okay, the groups get the first chance to react first.
I think the most important thing is that the news must be the reflection of the reality. But in my opinion, I think the reality is how the four countries chopped the river. But I think you need a lot of investigation how the people's movement destroyed the river, the whole river. That's my opinion. Thank you.
No, no, I think she's actually made a very important point that none of you have spoken about. The increasing disconnect between the river and the people who live on its banks. It's an important point, actually.
The other professor, sorry, can I add on, respond to that?
Yeah, do.
We actually, during the discussion, we talked about the function of the river as navigation, right? Yeah. Navigation. We talked about the possibility of navigation, why the river has not yet been used for navigation. And the answer we got from the professor is that it's because of the projects that divided the river from part to part.
You can't go above the barrage. I understand that.
So it's actually one of the reasons that we didn't mention this, but it can be developed in the future.
Panchali?
I really love this idea of faces. It always comes up an interesting story. What I would like to see here is if we could put some of the historical evidences where people talk about how they came in. Usually when you talk about people settled in river basins, along the river basins, you could talk about how they came there, the settlement. And if there are people that have moved out of that area, why, the impact story when you are talking about. So I think looking at the history of settlement will be very interesting, and also displacements. Thank you.
Liked it very much because you're the only group who is talking about women and women, gender. First is that. Second point is, can we say something, the message? I'm thinking about what is the message your speech is going to give. Can we say something like common people who lives across the Indus Basin, which was a question as well, face similar problem. Doesn't matter whether they're in Afghanistan or in India or in Pakistan. So when you talk about gender, you had mentioned something like Tibet, how many kilometers women has to walk. It's not only in Tibet, in all the 4 countries. So maybe the message that you can bring out is that whether a dam comes up, hydropower comes up, whatever comes up, life, whether are we able to improve the quality of the life of these common people at all? Does these development has any impact on their quality of life? That would be something.
Actually, we ran a series of 4 3-minute videos from India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh on how long it takes the average woman to fetch water for the house. And that worked very well. I mean, just put it in a series. How long it takes. Judges, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I saw this strength at 2 points. Number one is, of course, we always have seen the civilization, Indus civilization, because civilization come around on the river. So this is yet another, it may not be a novel idea, but in the context of this forum, this countries that we are talking about, I think it's a good idea to have these 4 countries civilization coming in and different aspects of women and so on. The other strong point that you have, which I heard because I briefly sat here, sorry, it's the other important strength. The other important point is that it will be simultaneously released from all the 4 countries. I think that's a very strong statement if you can manage that, because I asked them, how will you manage? Because there is only one editor who can commit. The rest of them said that we will also discuss with our editor. So I think that's the second strength of the story. Thank you.
Exactly, my point is in different countries there is a different context. there are different aspects to the water, to the country, to the overall life of a nation. And then if we particularly focus on the common things, within that different spectrum, there are common problems. So before ending up showing the common element in the picture, the previous pictures, if they, as much as possible, try to show the different contexts, and then even while we are having a difficult context into it, we are facing the same problem if we want to focus on the problem, or if there is a success that we want to show. But we need to magnify the differences so that that common issue, that common agenda can be appreciated better.
Again, I see that the people is the cornerstone of the water issues. So to focus on the human beings and their needs, I think it's very important. But actually, I don't know what is the circumstances of the media in your country, because you always have to have fund to cover the cost of to doing such a stories like that, and it's a big challenge for journalism. So I think that if you can find any solution to convince your editor-in-chief again, because it's my big challenge, to convince them to more writing or more reporting about the water issues and put it on the priority of the agenda. I think it's very important to find a way to concentrate the focus of your editorial policy on the people at the first or the high level. So I admire by your pitch.
We actually at these workshops we often do this. Today we are not going to do this because then we are going to be here the whole night, and how to convince your editor. So yes, we'll not take that, because I think all the journalists in the room know this very well, and very few non-journalists actually know this, that getting the story is 30% of the job. 70% of the job is convincing your editor to actually run that story. Yeah, that is the problem. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I know everybody is looking tired, and with good reason, but before we wind up for the day, yes, Nivedita.
I wish to request something which goes beyond the general environmental thing. May I suggest something? Okay, this may be suggestions, similar suggestions can be had from journalists from other countries, but I, as an Indian journalist, would be interested in knowing from Chinese journalists about the kind of development that have been taking in the Indus Basin vis-a-vis increased military presence and the infrastructure development in that region in Tibet. Okay, because we don't get to read much about it, and possibly China is not going to allow me to travel to that area. So it's the journalist from China I'm looking forward to. Similarly, similarly, I would be interested in knowing what Pakistan journalists would write about the Indus vis-a-vis the CPEC corridor and the Cascade Dam arrangements.
Yeah, you want to respond to that?
So if they're asking us, maybe we can travel to that area. Are you going to support us? That's the question. Thank you.
Very good question. Very good question, because I know that Chinese journalists find it extremely difficult to travel to that part of the world, mainly financial, and also there are restrictions on that. The answer to your second question is read the third poll. It's full of stories on this CPEC and Cascade and CPEC, and CPEC and Gwadar and everything, the whole thing, on the whole thing. Okay, now last item on the day's agenda, and this is an important one, and I'm going to now go right back, and there are 4 of you who are going to lead this, because you have to decide what you want to do with this workshop, with this group, with this thing in future. I'll just give you the current situation. The current situation, as far as I know, is that the Pakistani journalists had a workshop and formed a WhatsApp group. The Indian journalists had their workshop and formed a WhatsApp group. Both WhatsApp groups have been functional with varying degrees, to varying degrees. The Indian group has been quite functional. Pakistani group was functional for a while and then stopped being so functional. As far as I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'll be very happy to be proved wrong. The Afghan journalists did not make a group after the workshop, did they? They made a Facebook group. Very good. So they made a Facebook group. Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, we'll have the Chinese workshop tomorrow, but I'm going to ask them to respond to this point right now. I know you have a WeChat group. Yes, I know you have a WeChat. Yeah. So, I understand. Now, we discussed this, especially after the Indian workshop, we discussed this, that should we have, is there any good reason to have a regional WhatsApp or WeChat group for the journalists and the experts? And Nivedita may remember this, it was shot down. It was shot down by the Indians. I don't know what, because, yeah, by some of the Indian journalists and some of the Indian experts shot it down saying there are issues we may not want to share with the Pakistanis. Yeah. So that was a problem we had. So we did not do it. I don't know what happened. If the Pakistanis felt the same thing, I suspect they did not. I have a feeling they did not. Yeah, I can see lots of hands going up, but you are not going to give your ideas to me because I want you people to lead this. Okay?
Let me just correct. So the idea was, because it started with only India and Pakistan. So the idea was, no, let's have all or no one.
Okay. Okay. So now we are in that situation where I'm going to ask Amitav, Zofin, Asif, and Luchin to be here and coordinate this right now, or and decide what you. No dinner for anybody. No dinner for anybody. Till what you want to do? Do you want to have a group? If you don't want to have a group, if you want to have 4 separate groups, you want to have 4 separate groups plus 1 common group. If you want to have 1 common group, you don't want anything. It's for you people to decide. Okay? Over to you.
Okay. About this group thing, we in Pakistan had no clue about what was. I think this happened after the India, right? So without without our group's consent, I can't say anything. But I think we shouldn't have a problem if you don't. But everyone has to be comfortable, right? So maybe once you guys go back, or if you have a Facebook or if you have a WhatsApp, you can decide, and I can ask our group people, and we can come to some kind of a commitment as far as that is concerned. If we can have a joint group, but should the group also include China and Afghanistan, right? Yeah? But I do. Yeah. Yeah, China.
Is WhatsApp allowed in China?
China allowed.
Is Facebook allowed?
No.
So Facebook is not allowed, so you can't have a Facebook group for all 4 countries. So figure this out.
For Afghanistan, we have WhatsApp and Facebook.
Yeah, and India also. WhatsApp is there.
Luchin knows my problems with WeChat. WeChat uses Chinese emojis, which I do not understand. So that is a problem that I have with WeChat.
But Joydeep, when you say that we should have we could have a common group, the point is that is the national group even active before we have a regional group?
Yeah, that's another. Yeah.
You know?
So that's another question that I have. Even in the national group, there are a few people who, play that coordinating role or play
Hmm.
that, that
More.
spark,
Hmm. The initiators.
exactly the initiators. So, do you think in the national group, somebody could take on that role? Also,
Natasha, can you take on the role for all, regional as well as national? I mean, you do usually.
as an I share wherever my way.
Hmm.
But it would be good if it's within the fraternity and within your own networks also.
So what we can do for starters is that we can ask our WhatsApp group or whatever group we have, that if everyone is comfortable us sharing the information of that group, and if we can form a regional group, and if everyone agrees, we can do that immediately.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that was my suggestion.
Yeah.
Three of us already have our national level things. The China people have their WeChat thing.
Yeah.
Now WeChat, WhatsApp, those are the debates. We can have a Google group of the people present here.
Google?
No, something on mail basically. Something on mail. Not exactly a Google group, but something on mail, which is more compatible for all of us.
Email group that you want.
Email group, exactly. So email group of journalists present in this room, and we represent our respective national groups. That would be
I
a
don't know if
format.
we do that. I don't know about that.
It's fairly straightforward in that sense because most of us don't have emails of people from other countries. I mean, so if that can be circulated, every participant's email can be circulated. That should be fairly straightforward to do, and then at least we are able to. I mean, making an email group is not. You just have to. We have to send one introductory mail to everyone, and then everyone joins in. So, and then whoever wants to mail to whoever, at least we have the contacts of
The problem
everyone.
with email group is, as in it's just a plain email group, right?
Yeah, plain email group.
It's not a Google group.
No,
or
not a Google group. Just so that everyone has each one's email. I mean, we should.
Do you use WhatsApp? Is WhatsApp
This WhatsApp is not.
No, the point is also, do you just want it to be a journalist or do you want it to be a mixed group with experts?
Right now,
exactly.
But we do have WhatsApp as well with Chinese friends.
For if WhatsApp is active for China also, we support to have WhatsApp in Afghanistan. Because email is good idea, but email is more difficult than social media, than WhatsApp, WeChat, Viber, and for email maybe we don't know the face of the participant. Sometimes we forget, but in social media we have the picture, so we can recognize whose profile
That's a very
is
good
the.
point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
If you actually form whatever group you form, are all of you open to adding journalists who are not in this group right now?
That's what we said. We could ask our group.
That should be a problem.
Also, but we have to find out if the experts are open to that as well. Because we in our
experts, it will have to be on an individual basis. We should request, if you're going to have a group,
do they want
all the experts to be part of it, and then as well the experts should decide. I would love them to be part of it. Hopefully I can assume correctly that Center would like to be part of it.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for us to reach to single decisions in that case. And I have a question of your teams, how you could, for example, do a story to make a joint agreement between these four countries. Right now we are having problem even in just making a group.
That's just a story. We write a story.
I'm just joking.
No, so does WhatsApp work for the Chinese journalists and experts? Yeah, just take the mic. Just take the mic.
Both WhatsApp as well as Gmail group, email group. So as far as we can use which WhatsApp, we can send it. But for some who might not be able to use it, we can just send emails to the group. So just the two.
So WhatsApp is active for the Chinese. So let's go for WhatsApp group,
Both. She's saying let's have both the groups.
email and WhatsApp. Yeah, that's great. We are agree for email and WhatsApp.
We can only decide once we've spoken to our respective groups. I mean, right now it seems that the four of us wouldn't have any problems, the five of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have a problem joining any groups, do we? No? Yes. No, we asked them that we are forming this group with three other countries. Would it be acceptable for you to be on that group?
So you form the group and then you ask everybody whether they want to be part of it.
Or they can even leave the group if they want to. We add them. People do it all the time to us. Without asking permission.
No, but that's not nice.
I mean, you can always leave, sir.
So, okay, I have a question. How many for only a WhatsApp group?
Is
For,
it
for
all four
everybody, for
countries?
all four regions?
All four countries?
Only a WhatsApp group. And how many for both WhatsApp and email group? Okay, so that has more.
Bandwidth is not the same in all four countries. So for those who have a poor bandwidth, email will make more sense.
Yes.
They may not be able to get the WhatsApp quite often. Yeah, duplication is not a good idea.
I agree.
Okay, we have different points of view. Duplication may not be a good idea. Somebody says it can be used as a backup.
Okay, but personally,
I think between the three of you and Liu Chin,
Personally for me, WhatsApp is much easier. You get instant, you need a picture, you need information, you just send a message and it happens. It's easier.
We also support WhatsApp to have WhatsApp.
okay, now let Jessica say why she wanted an email group in addition to the WhatsApp.
I think email group is also efficient. Let's say EJN. I mean, it works well. I mean,
It works well for
yeah.
the journalism network.
Yes, and why bother? I mean, for me, I don't have WhatsApp. I need to, I have a lot of communication ways, like Slack, like WeChat, and I don't want to. But this is my personal concern. So I think email is everybody just use it, and it's easy. And for the question of no pictures to recognize, we can just accompany a picture of our photos. So that's easy to solve.
so that's
Getting a personal reluctance to add more apps to the phone because we are struggling with the number.
So then let's just have an email group.
No, email plus WhatsApp.
Yeah, for us it's more convenient to have both.
yeah. So what
WhatsApp
I'll do
and
is
email.
I'll connect everybody on an email, right? Whoever's present in this group, including the experts. I hope there are no particular issues. And on email, yeah. WhatsApp, anybody, I'll connect you all, but you're free to leave it in case you're not comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Make that
Yeah.
very clear right at the first message of the
First message.
that this
Okay.
You can unsubscribe it.
You can reply to remove.
Unsubscribe thing. What with Alexa?
Yeah, I don't. So
I
unless
think it's-
unless people start sharing, I don't think you will get such volumes that you'll be tired. So no.
I think
you-
it's finalized
so,
already.
So there's always this curve which happens.
Okay, it's done.
Yeah.
Natasha, it's done then. Anything else we want to take this group forward? Any ideas how we can make it active? Do transboundary stories maybe? Get them published in the third pole? Hmm. How do you do it?
Can I make a suggestion? Sorry. Can
Sharing things to relevant people. So what I do is wherever I find an related thing, maybe it can be a tweet, it can be a story, or it can be something, announcement or something, I draw attention of people in my group. Possibly we can do it
In
for
that
the
regional
larger
group.
group.
Yeah.
So I know journalists don't often write about themselves, right? It's probably written into the rule book that you shouldn't write about yourselves. But the fact you're thinking of constituting a group, is that news in itself? Even low-level news, very low-level news maybe. Not necessarily in your media outlets, but just more generally through social media.
You can tweet about it.
Yeah, tweeting and other ways of
That how
communicating.
reluctant we were.
Yeah. How difficult it
How
was,
difficult
but
it
nevertheless you overcome adversity.
Do you see the cynical faces?
No, I do, but that's a starting point. Then they'll become smiley faces eventually. No, just an idea anyway. Don't be shy. Don't hide under your bushels and all that kind of thing. Yeah?
Where we can engage with each other more actively. That's it. Is there maybe some particular?
Send all your transboundary story ideas to Jofi or to me or to Lucian. Send some to Karamdev as well.
No, they're doing a 4-country story.
I know.
Yeah.
So do send those ideas to him.
Okay. So before we run off for dinner, let's have a group picture. Yeah. So let's just stand near that banner, and let's.
I look better in the morning.
This shows how hard you've worked.